So this is the second part of the sine and cosine rule videos. We're going to continue with the same triangle we did in the previous question, but with a different question to ask. So this question is calculate the length of AC. Okay. What I'm going to do is just put up those formulae again. So we've got the sine rule, the cosine rule, and the area rule. Now the area rule, of course, we're not going to be using this because we're going to be calculating sides. So the first thing to do in this kind of question, I guess, is to decide which rule you're going to use. Okay, which rule are you going to use? Now you can, understanding which rule to use comes with a bit of experience and practice of these questions. You could try and apply the sine rule, and then if it doesn't work, then you might try the cosine rule instead. So you could do a bit of trial and error. And if you were to use the sine rule, you would find that there isn't enough information to use it and use it successfully. You would need more information in order to use it. But we can use the cosine rule. We have two sides and an angle, and we're trying to find a missing side. Okay. Again, we're going to relabel the triangle because the examiner has not been very nice. Okay. So notice, okay, how in the cosine rule we've got cos of A there. So I've just highlighted that. We've got cos of A for the cosine rule. Whereas the angle that we know in the question is that angle B. So I'm going to relabel it, and this time I'm going to call that angle A. Now it doesn't really matter what angles the other two are, but I'm just going to call the top one B and the other one C. That means that opposite C and opposite B we have the corresponding sides. I'm going to now write out what the cosine rule is. So the cosine rule is A squared is equal to B squared plus C squared minus 2BC cos A. That's the cosine rule that you get given. Okay, and now that we've relabeled the triangle to look like this one here, we can fill out what we know. So we know what B is. So B is 28.3, so we've got 28.3 squared. We know what C is. C is 11.7 squared. We have minus 2 times by 28.3 times by 11.7, and then A is 67 degrees. Okay, and hopefully you notice that A, the little side A, is the side that we are looking for from the question. The length AC, now that we've relabeled the triangle, is that little a. Okay, so if we start filling some of these out, we have 66. If we do all this in our calculator, you end up with 679. Now it's not just 679, I've rounded it there, but you shouldn't round until the very end. Okay, so when you've got a squared is equal to 679 point something, 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 you'll then square root it to find out what a is. So it's 26.1 to 3 significant figures. Okay, and I'm going to write some of the other digits from a squared as well. Okay, so that's what you should get for this particular question. Okay, again, we're going to do more practice of this in lessons. Hopefully you followed it until there. Okay, I'm going to carry on with this video to do the second question. So turn to the next page, I guess, and we'll do that now. Okay. So this question, the only rule we haven't used yet is the sine rule, so that's obviously the one we're going to be using. So the question says, find angle QRP. Now QRP is this angle here. So the sine rule is the following: A over sine A equals B over sine C equals C over sine C. Sine C. Okay, now it doesn't really matter what sides we use, but we might want to do another sketch and label them in the appropriate ways. Okay, so I'll label the sides like that. I'll fill in what we know. Okay, maybe you want to pause the video now and see if you can use the sine rule. Okay. If you're not sure, here's the start of it. So we know what A is. We know A is 9, so it's 9 over sine of 75 is equal to 4 over sine of C. Now C is the side we're looking for. We don't need to worry about B over sine B. Okay, we only need to use this part of the equation and this part of the equation. We can ignore the middle part. We can ignore the middle part because we don't have any information about these aspects of the triangle, and also we don't need any information about these aspects of the triangle. So now that we've set up this equation, we can rearrange it, make sine C the subject, and then find out what C is. So maybe you want to pause the video here and try and work it out. Okay, so we might write down what the left-hand side is. The left-hand side, when you do this, is 9.3174, and there are lots more digits. Please don't round anything until the end. Okay. Lovely, so we get to this stage. All I've done is put the left-hand side in my calculator. Okay, now what some of you might do here is you might try and, I don't know, divide by 4 or times by 4, but you're not allowed to do that. If you were to say times by 4, then the top line would become 16. If you were to divide by 4, then on the right-hand side of this equation, you would just have 1 over sine C. So this isn't allowed. At this stage, what you would do is you say, well, I don't like the fraction there. I don't like 4 over sine C, so you're going to multiply both sides by sine C. Okay? So we get to this stage. And now we can make sine C the subject by dividing through by that 9.3174. And make sure you haven't rounded this number. Okay, now when you put 4 over 9.3174, etc., into your calculator, you get this number here. So what is C? How do I find C? Well, I've got sine C is equal to 0.42930 something, something, something. So C, this is from the trigonometry we've done before, is the sine inverse of that number. When you put that into your calculator, you'll get an answer of 25.4 degrees to 3 significant figures. Okay, and now that is the answer. That's how to do this question. There is a side note. Here's an alternative way to do the question, which is slightly easier, but it's not important if you don't remember how to do this. Now remember that there were 2 ways I could write the sine rule. The sine rule that you get given, which is the one that's on the page at the moment, or this one, sine A over A is equal to sine C over sine C, which would be equal to sine B over B, but we don't need that part. So I plug things in the same way, so I get sine 75 over 9 is equal to sine C over 4. Now this one is easier because there are less steps to do in the calculation. So I can times both sides by 4 now, and I'll be left with sine C. And at this stage, we have the same point of the equation as we did just... Oh, and then to complete it, we'll continue from where the arrow says to. Okay, so this is slightly easier in terms of the algebraic manipulation, but both solutions would be absolutely fine. Okay, as I said, this is a new concept, and we'll be practicing lots of it next week in our lessons. If you need to watch this video again, then please do. Okay, thanks for watching.